Hey everyone, welcome back to the Hobby Homestead, the extension of the Hobby Homestead. So if you're new here, I grow in the suburbs primarily in Guelph, Ontario, and my mom thankfully moved about 10 minutes away from us. She was previously 2 hours away, and she downsized from about 100 acres of like hobby farm, rewilded space, which is stunning. She downsized to this place, which is 14 acres, and she's doing the same thing here that she did at her old place, which is rewilding the area. There's a couple acres in sugar maple forest, and then the rest was all actively worked cornfields. She's turned that into wetlands and some ponds and tall grass prairie. And right now we're just in the midst of putting in a bit of a garden space for her. And in this area we've been working on a berry cage. This project is something I have been dreaming of doing for years because wildlife, birds, squirrels, chipmunks, all those things end up eating berries more than we get the berries. And so a berry cage is just a way to completely protect your berry plants. So today I'm going to show you some of the footage that I've taken along the way as we've constructed this berry cage. We're going to hopefully finish the project today. And then also today I really need to get our potatoes into the ground. So I'm going to be prepping the earth here for a bunch of potatoes. We're doing a no-till potato trial actually with the Ecological Farmers Association of Ontario. We're participating in these trials. It's farmer-led research. So we're just going to plant our potatoes in a no-till way. And if you're a gardener and not a farmer, you're probably more likely to have heard of this as the Ruth Stout method. So essentially we're just laying down potatoes, seed potatoes, on the ground and then covering them with straw. In our case, you can use lots of different mulches. But what I really have to do, because this area has been worked with the tractor to make the wetlands, and previously it was sprayed with broadleaf herbicides for many years as the corn was here. Right now there's a ton of weed seeds coming up everywhere, and so I'm going to sheet mulch right around where the potatoes are going. We're going to lay down cardboard, we're going to lay down wood chips, and then in the middle of that is where we're going to plant our no-dig or Ruth Stout potatoes. So we have a lot that we have to get done today. There's going to be a lot of hyperlapse footage, a lot of just watching us work. Please enjoy. This gazebo was a Facebook Marketplace find. We scored it for $75 last fall and got it up just before the snow came. Now that we can get back out on the field and start to work again, it's time to level the ground and get this gazebo frame leveled out. I am so thankful that my mom has a tractor to make light work of this regrading. We weren't concerned about perfection here, just making sure that the future garden space looked mostly level to the naked eye. We're going to be putting raised beds on this ground, and raised beds and other structures like this tend to make unlevel ground more noticeable. We also wanted to bolt the gazebo to heavy pavers so it would be less likely to blow away in a windstorm. We actually only got 2 of the legs bolted down before a windstorm did come through, and it pulled the gazebo over by about a foot. Now all 4 legs are secured. After the ground was leveled and the gazebo frame secured, Kim added some 2x4 horizontal supports for attaching the welded wire hardware cloth. That's what's going to make this a rodent and bird-proof cage. We brought in wood chips to smother the weeds and to make this a not muddy area for walking and working in. And then my mom bought herself a U-shaped sprout box garden bed for planting in the gazebo. She used a raised garden bed for 2 reasons. One, she'll be primarily growing blueberries in here, and they like acidic soil, and our native soil is very alkaline. It's next to impossible to amend your native in-ground soil permanently, so planting in containers or raised beds and then amending with elemental sulfur is the most promising way that I have found to amend high pH soil for things like blueberries. Also, my mom needs a garden that's up off the ground for accessibility, and raised beds tend to need very little, if any, weeding. I do have an affiliate link that you can use if you want to purchase your own sprout box garden bed, plus a coupon code that I'll put in the video description. So far, we love using them, but my mom's one complaint is that they don't have a ledge along the top for sitting on while planting or for putting your cup of coffee on. She was using our homemade raised beds as a comparison, so if you want that feature, you'll probably have to build your own beds. The sprout box metal is supposed to last 20 plus years though, so for the right purpose, I think they're great. They do have these bracing rods that you install so that they don't bow out when you fill them with soil, but they are very heavy duty so far, I've found. Here, Kim's installing a basic frame for a door on the gazebo, and I'm working on digging the trench along all 4 sides so we can sink the welded wire hardware cloth into the ground to keep out digging rodents. And just a couple weeks after filming this video, I got a pickaxe as a Mother's Day gift, which would have been really helpful trying to dig this trench. You can see here we used cardboard topped with at least 6 inches of wood chips as a way to smother weeds. I've done that in my suburban backyard, and we're doing it a lot here where the field had previously been worked as a cornfield and sprayed with broadleaf herbicides to keep the weeds away. Sheet mulching is a really good way to smother most weeds, and it builds the soil over time. We had some extra panels left over from the U-shaped bed, from the sprout box bed, and we used those to add another little garden outside the gazebo. We always backfill new raised beds with logs and branches and dried leaves if we have them. That just saves on soil. Now that the gazebo is mostly done, so close to being all caged in, it's time to get these potatoes in the ground. I'm doing a lot of sheet mulching here, and of course with the no-till, no-dig, Ruth Stout, whatever you want to call it, potato planting method, the potatoes themselves are under a ton of mulch. And this trial was actually already done last year by the Ecological Farmers Association of Ontario. They funded a group last year to do this trial, and they did find that there was very little weeding, very little watering required. So I know that where the potatoes are planted, and I've got tons of straw on top of them, I should have very little weed pressure. But where there's not potatoes and straw, like where my pathways are, I wanted to make sure that we had no weeds coming in there. Weeds have a way of moving inwards from the edges, and so I'm making sure that everything is mulched on pathways and also very mulched on the potatoes. Now, I will just note the rows that I'm putting in between these sheet mulched pathways are incredibly narrow, and I would not recommend doing this unless it's something like a Ruth Stout potato. That's because wood chips, if they come into contact with the soil that you're growing in, can tie up a lot of the nitrogen that would be available in that soil to your plants. The nitrogen gets tied up as the wood chips decompose and break down. So if you want to use wood chip pathways, it's best if you can to use aged wood chips, at least a little bit aged. These ones have been sitting for about a year, so they're good to go. And if you are using fresh wood chips, just make sure that you have enough soil space that you're planting into, like maybe 3-foot wide bed at least, with the wood chip pathways in between beds like that, so that your actual plants are not being planted too close to where the wood chip pathways are. But for us, these are very broken down wood chips, and with the Ruth Stout method, you can actually use broken down wood chips as the mulch that you're putting on top of the potatoes. We're opting for straw here, but it's not a big concern for me if some of the wood chips sort of get mixed into where the potatoes are growing. I'm doing a little bit of hoeing here, just knocking off some of the weeds that are in the space I want to plant the potatoes. This is no-till or no-dig, so I am not tilling the soil. So each row is about 20 feet long, and each row also has a different kind of potato. The potato varieties that I chose were ones that performed well in last year's trial that multiple farmers did. One was the Chieftain Organic Red potato. Another was Purple Majesty, that's a blue potato. And then the third one, I just wanted a white potato that might do well with Ruth Stout, and I didn't realize actually how small this potato is until I got the seed potatoes, but it's called Bridget, and it's just a white potato. Those are the 3 varieties we're trying this year. I chose to not chit these potatoes. Well, no, that's not true. I didn't choose to. I just failed to. I just didn't chit them, and then all of a sudden I had to get them planted. Chitting is where you set them out to start growing sprouts. Some people refer to cutting your potatoes into sections as chitting as well. And for this trial, our options were to either chit them into a specific size or just to not chit them at all, like not cut them up. And so my seed potatoes, I just left whole. Some of them were really small, and they had already started sprouting while they were waiting for me to plant them. They were in my cold room, and most of the sprouts were still pretty small and not too like blanched or leggy. So I just went ahead with it and planted them as is. These seed potatoes are spaced about 12 inches apart, although in some cases I planted them a bit on an angle so I could get away with maybe a little bit closer together, like 10 inches or so, but you know, they're anywhere from like 10 to 12 inches apart in each row. Now, I did take some notes when I was chatting with the other farmers doing this trial. Some of them did the trial last year, and they recommended starting with about 8 to 12 inches of straw on top of the seed potatoes, and then you add to it as the sprouts start to emerge. At the end of the season, you're going to have about 2 feet deep of straw mulch or whatever mulch on top of your seed potatoes. And you want to wait to add more until there's about 4 or 5 inches of plant showing above the old layer of straw. And yeah, I was just looking back at my notes from this meeting I had with all these other farmers who did this trial before, and 2 farmers both said they only watered once all year last year, and they still had a pretty good marketable harvest. I don't know if you're going to be able to hear me or not because it is so windy here, but we've finally finished the gazebo. All of the sides are on, and they were blowing us away like a sail today when we got them up. So now we just wait and let the vegetables and the blueberries that are in here start to produce, and then we can laugh at all the chipmunks and the squirrels and the birds and the mice and the groundhogs and the raccoons and all the things that want to eat the stuff that's growing in here. They can't. Thanks so much for watching this transformation. I hope that you come and grow with us.